Prabhuji was mentioning to me that he has discussed with all of you something about some introduction about how can we have happiness in our life and etc. So I thought of choosing a topic with that topic. The topic is pleasure hunt, as all of you must have seen it. So I've just opened a small presentation. So this is the topic, pleasure hunt. So maybe I would like to begin with a story. One time there was a group of some 10 friends, and they used to stay on the 100th floor building. And so one of the times they have gone in the evening for seeing a movie, and when they returned back, when they returned back, then they found that the lift was not working. So now they have to go to the 100th floor, and the lift was not working. So they were thinking that what to do, and the people told that it is going to take a lot of time. So the only option left with them was to climb to the staircase. So then they thought that, okay, let us do one thing. Each of us can share some stories so that the time will pass and we will be able to slowly climb up on the 100th floor. So with that idea, they started their climbing. And then when they started sharing them some stories. And by the time they reached to the 99th floor, so the last man was there, the last friend was there who was about to share some story. So his turn was there. And then everyone looked towards him and towards him, now only one floor is remaining. And now it's your turn. You can share some story with all of us so that we can climb. Of course, all of them were very tired, and they were not so happy about all the things. So, anyways, so he told that, friends, I do have a story to share with all of you, but it's a very, very tragic story. I don't know whether you will be able to be happy about it or not. So friends were thinking, Are, what is your story? Why you are telling like this that it is going to be a tragic story? So nobody was able to guess out. And then he told, see friend, what is the story? I have only a one-line story. What is that story? I have forgot on the ground floor. So he told that. And as soon as he told it, then everyone was very much disappointed. That's all.
Sorry, Prabhuji, could you say it again? We couldn't catch it. There's so much disturbance. Okay. There's someone who's unmuted, I think. Ritesh Prabhu, could you please mute yourself? We couldn't hear, Prabhuji, the last thing. At least I couldn't hear.
Okay. Okay, Mataji, what we'll do, we'll make you the host, I think. We'll give you the host so that you can do those things. Gaurav Prabhu, can you make Mataji as a host?
I think he made me the host. We spoke on the chat.
Okay, fine. So I was telling that this friend told that my story is that I have forgotten the key on the ground floor. So they have been there all the way to the 99th floor, and now they come to know that the key is on the ground floor. So means what? Again, they have to go down and they have to get the key. So I was hearing this story, and why I was telling this story, same you see in our life also. Many of the times, we have been through our journey in the life. We try to do many things in this world. We try to go for some jobs. We try to have some families, and we all try to do these different endeavors. But one very important question which we have to ask is that why we are doing all those things in our life. We do go for schooling, we do go for college studies, we do go for some jobs, we do go for marriages, etc. Many things we do in our life. But one important question which we often forget to ask is that why we are going to do that. So that's why it is very important for us to take a break for ourselves and ask ourselves that what is the thing which I want to get in my life. What is the reason for me to do all these different activities. So would any of you would like to share that what is that one thing which we are looking for in our life, for which we do these different activities of our life, whether it is doing some job, business, schooling, college education, etc. What is that one thing which we want to get in our life?
Hi, may I go?
Yes, please.
One thing that I'm looking for is like a long while ago, I stopped feeling happiness in my life. Whatever I do, whatever I achieve, I stop feeling that. So the one thing I'm looking forward is happiness and satisfaction.
Yes, you correctly spelled it out. That is what we're looking for is only happiness in our life. So what we are looking for is only pleasure and the happiness. And oftentimes we try to have journey of our life, and we do many activities, but we forget to ask that my goal is to become happy. Why I'm doing different things is so that I can become happy. So that's why, just like these boys, they climb, but they forgot to get the key. Same way it should not happen with us, that we do have a journey of our life, but we should not forget at why we have started this journey. The purpose of this journey is to get happiness in our life. Okay, so it is very important for us to ask that, why I am into this journey. I'm into this journey for getting happiness, and then we should also know the right way by which we can get that goal, by which we can have an end or destination for that journey. We should know the right way to get the happiness. So today's topic, we are going to learn this only, that what are the different ways by which we try to get pleasure or the happiness in our lives. Okay, and out of all of them pleasures, which one is the topmost pleasure, that we're going to learn in this today's topic. So this is the topic of pleasure hunt, because ultimately we are all looking for happiness. We are all looking for, pleasure in our life. So I hope my screen is visible to all of you.
Yes,
Yes,
Prabhuji.
it is, Prabhuji. Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
okay, yeah. So generally, you see, here it says, what does the pleasure means? So generally, for most of us, we think that pleasure means what? If we will be able to have some more possessions, we will be able to have some more facilities for ourselves. We may have some cars, bungalows, or some big wealth. Then that may give us, happiness. That may be that may constitute pleasure in our life. That is a general understanding which we have in our life, right? But we can see that how, even though one may have all these facilities, facilities, material possessions, wealth and bungalows and the cars, etc., but still we find that they do not define happiness. They do not define satisfaction, because if it would have been the case, then those people who are the most wealthiest, they would have been the most happiest. But we find that that is not the case. Indeed, many of the times, those who are most wealthiest, they do have a tough time. They even have to take sometimes sleeping pills even to take rest, because they are caught up with so many anxieties, lack of peace. So happiness and peace, both of them are, they're connected to each other. When there is a peacefulness, then only there can be happiness. And we do find it how the happiness and the pleasure does not come from the external things, from the external achievements of life. So now let us see that, okay, ultimately, who is wanting for that pleasure? See, we are going to discuss that who is desiring to have this pleasure, and why one is desiring to have that pleasure, and how one tries to derive that pleasure. And then we are going to see that what is the best way by which we can get that pleasure. So we're going to see all this, who, why, how, and what is the nature of that pleasure which we get in this world, and how we can derive the best pleasure in our life. So first of all, who wants that pleasure? This is a very important question, right? We say that, okay, we desire pleasure, but the Shastra says that how our real identity is what? We are the Atmas. We are the souls. We are not this temporary body, the body which is made up of the matter. Our identity is different from this body. We are the souls which are seated inside these bodies. And the inherent nature of the soul is to be happy. The inherent nature of the soul is to be happy. So it is the soul which is us. And because the soul's inherent nature is to be happy, to seek pleasure, that's why we try to seek pleasure. So ultimately, the soul is desiring pleasure. The Atma which is there in the pleasure, okay? Not the body, because body is just like it is made up of the matter. So body in itself is dead, but the Atma's presence makes it live. So because we are the Atmas and our inherent nature is to be always pleasure seeking, that's why we are the ones who are looking for the pleasure. The Atma is looking for the pleasure. And now, okay, why do we need to have pleasure? Why does the Atma need to have pleasure? Because it is being mentioned that in the Vedanta Sutra this comes, that how the nature of the Atma is, it is Anandmayo Abhyasa. That by nature, the soul is pleasure seeking. It's our inherent nature. The Atma's inherent nature is to be always seeking the pleasure. So, but because in this world, we have got these material bodies. We have got our bodies. These bodies, they constitute of the Panch Mahabhut, earth, water, fire, air, ether. So the body is made up of these 5 elements. And because we have got caught up in this material body, the body which is made up of the matter, and by the means of this body, we cannot have a great pleasure. This body is not capable. It is not capable enough to give us the pleasure desired by the soul. The Atma is desiring unlimited amount of pleasure, oceanic amount of pleasure. But the experience of the pleasure which we can have, so this material body is very, very limited. So the expectation is of unlimited pleasure, and the body's capacity is to give you only a limited pleasure. And that's why there's a mismatch. And that's why we don't feel satisfied. So why? Because the Atma is pleasure seeking, but the body is not capable of giving that pleasure. So this is why we are hunting for the pleasure, because it is our true nature to hunt for the pleasure. Now the question is, so see, this is the mention about the nature of the Atma. So just like our body also has certain natures. Like one of the natures of the body is what? Body is temporary. So that's why we find that how once, even in this lifetime, we find that the body was temporary. Once we were very small, we were kids, then we grow little, we grow young, then eventually we grow old, and eventually we have to also give up our body some of the days. So we find out how the body keeps changing. But on the contrary, the Atma which is seated inside the body, us, that does not change actually. So that is the nature of the Atma. So that is called as a Sat, which means eternal. The Atma does not change. Atma always stays. Even after the destruction of the body also, the Atma always stays. And Atma is also full of knowledge. It is Chit, and it is also full of happiness. So in the true existence, the Atma is all blissful, all full of knowledge. But when we get with these material bodies and with some material ideas, then we are not able to experience our real nature. So that's why we are seeking for pleasure, because that is our true nature, to seek for pleasure. That is the nature of the soul. So now next question is that how do we hunt for that pleasure in our life? So like now this is going to be something interesting. You will be very surprised to see this analysis, that how there are different levels at which we are designing to seek pleasure in our life. So okay, there is some comment. There's a difference between the pleasure and the happiness. Okay, like in general sense, that is like, let us same only we say. So for our discussion, like we can take it like as equivalent only, pleasure as well as the happiness. Okay. So now what are the different ways by which we try to become happy in this world? So let us have a analysis about these things. So Bhagavad Gita answers that in the 3rd chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Now Krishna says that how Indriyani paranya ahur indriyabhya param mana manasastu para buddhi buddhir parasastu saha. So Krishna says that how there are different levels of our existence. No, we have senses with us. We have a sensual existence, that is what is the physical existence. Then we also have our emotional or mental existence. Basically, there are 3 types of existence which we have. We have our material bodies, that is what is the physical existence. Then we have a emotional existence or mental existence. We all have our minds, which goes through certain emotions. And then we also have our intellect, by which we make some decisions, which make some analysis. And beyond all these things is ultimately we are the souls, we are the Atmas. Okay. So basically, in this world, we all have experience of some happiness. So that is basically of 4 types. We generally try to have 4 kinds of happiness in this world at 4 different levels. Okay. So first one is called as a sense pleasure. Second is called as a mental pleasure. Then there's something called as the intellectual pleasure and the egoistic pleasure. Okay. So now we'll discuss each of them one by one. Right. So let us first talk about the sense pleasure. So this is a sensual pleasure which we have, right? Any guesses what this sense pleasure may be? It's very simple to guess as such. Sense pleasure means? Anyone?
By touch or feel.
By touch or feel. Okay. Yes. Any other thing?
When you see some beautiful garden full of flowers, so that is also a sense of pleasure.
Something to eat good, like taste, related to taste.
Correct. Something to eat right now.
So
ultimately, all the 5 senses, wherever you're getting pleasure from your 5 senses.
Yes. Aruna Mataji spelled it out very nicely. See, we have 5 types of senses with us. They're called as the knowledge acquiring senses. या फिर इंद्रियाज जिसको बोलते हैं, ज्ञान इंद्रियाज. So we have our eyes by the means of which we see the things of this world. We have our nose by which we smell some things. We have tongue by which we taste something. We have the skin by which we touch something. And eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and touch. These are the 5 senses. So sensual happiness means the happiness which we derived out of our senses. So when our senses are in touch with certain objects, then we derive some pleasure. To give you some examples, for example, like, with our eyes, we always want to look for something beautiful, right? People want to go to some scenic places, some hill stations. Why? Because that is like very fascinating for our eyes, very eye-catching, right? We want to reside in some good locality where everything is very posh. Why? Because the eyes want to see always some beautiful objects. Same way with our tongue also, we always want to taste something, tasty things. There are so many varieties of. That's why we have Chinese, Mexican, South Indian, Korean, so many varieties of food stuff is there. The restaurants are there, and everyone looks for opportunity to go out and take some things. So why? Because the tongue also desires some taste. So the happiness which you derive out of the tongue, that is also sensual happiness. The same way we have our ears. With our ears, we want to hear some musics. Different types of musics are there. Classical music is there, etc., etc. So the happiness which we get through our senses, that is called as the sensual happiness. Okay. Now, so good. Many of you were able to guess very nicely. Thank you so much for your participation. So this was about the sensual happiness. Okay. The pleasure which we derive from our eyes, nose, tongue, ear, and the skin. Okay. And out of all these sensual pleasures, the most intense pleasure is the sex pleasure in the world, that is being spoken. So that's why we find that in this world, everyone, they want to experience this pleasure of sex life, because that is a pleasure which is the most intense out of all the other experiences of pleasure which we have in this world. Even if that's why we find even some of the great kings of all the times who are practically able to conquer the whole world, we find that they also fail when it comes to fulfilling the lusty desires. They also fail to this kind of pleasure. So why? Because that is the most intense pleasure which is there in this world. So I have a small interesting story to share regarding this regard. So there was a great king in the earlier times. His name was Bhattur Hari, and he was having a very beautiful queen. He was very much attached to his beautiful queen also. And one of the times, one saintly person came to his palace, and he saw this king. The king was there, and in the Vedic times, people used to receive the saintly people very, very warmly. So then this saintly person, he gave him a small jewel, very beautiful jewel he gave to him. And he told him that, my dear king, you can do one thing. You can give this jewel to the person whom you love the most, whom you're attached to the most. So, and then the saint went out. Okay. Now this king, naturally he was very much, fascinated by the queen. He was very much attached to his wife. So then he gave that jewel to the queen. Okay. Now, what happened is some days passed by. After some days, then what happened? One of the days when he was sitting in his palace, in his court, then one of the girls came. She came, and she told that, my dear king, I want to gift you something. So then he told, okay, what do you want to give? So she told that, okay, this is a jewel, very, very beautiful jewel. I want to gift it to you. Now, when the king saw this jewel, so it was a great surprise for him. He found that it was the same jewel which he has given to his wife. And he was not able to fathom, he was not able to make out that what has happened. So then he went out in seclusion, and then he thought for a while that what might have happened. And then he was able to solve the riddle. So maybe I would like to invite all of you, maybe any of you can solve this riddle. What might have happened? He has gifted that jewel to his wife. Okay. Now it has returned to him through some other girl. So what is the riddle? Any guesses?
The queen would have gifted to this girl.
Okay, the queen will have gifted to the girl. Okay, fine. Of course, the king also, I just forgot to mention one thing. The king has told the queen that, you can give this to the one whom you love the most. You can give this jewel to someone whom you love the most. Like that she has told. Like that he has told to the queen actually.
Yeah, with that intent only the queen would have given it to the girl. She would have loved her the most.
Okay. There is some twist in the story, Okay, let me answer. So what has happened is, the king was attached. King was naturally thinking that I love her the most, and she must be also loving me the most. So, but what happened is this queen, she was interested into someone else. She was more attached to the other person. So what happened is she gave to that person that ring. And then what happened? And of course the queen was thinking that he is the one who love her the most, but this fellow was also loving someone else more. So then he also handed that ring to someone else. So like that it passed through, and finally it came to the king, and the king was able to realize that how he understood that how I was thinking that the queen loves me the most, and I was most attached to the queen. But he understood that how it's not that she is also same way with me. She has she's indeed having affair with someone else like that. So he understood that how this sensual pleasure, we cannot be fully happy by having the sensual pleasure in our life. ultimately they are going to lead us to disappointment and frustration only. So he's a very famous person, Bhartrhari, and indeed initially he has written some 100 shlokas in the glorification of the beauty of his wife. And later on, when he got this realization that how in this world, the experience of sensual happiness which we have is only very temporary, it's not the real thing, then he wrote another set of 100 shlokas which were about, that is called as a Vairagya Shatak. The initial 100 shlokas were called as a Shringar Shatak. That was about the description of the beauty of his wife, and later on he write about the Vairagya Shatak, which is about detachment, that how one should become detached from this worldly life. Anyway, so I was telling the story how the sensual happiness is there, which we have experience of, but that does not give us the ultimate joy. That is what we can learn here. Okay. Now let us come to the next level of happiness. So the next level of happiness is called the mental pleasure. Okay. Again, I would like to invite some guesses from all of you. What are the things from which we do get sometimes mental pleasure?
Maybe some sense of achievement.
Mental pleasure means sense of achievements. Sense of achievements. Okay. Yes, that is also one of the things.
Satisfaction.
Satisfaction. Okay. Like can you name some things which give pleasure to our mind? Just like
Gaining knowledge.
Knowledge. Okay. Okay. Anything else? Okay. I will just give an example. Like sometimes we have this experience. Like I remember when we were, earlier. So sometimes what used to happen, like suppose there's a cricket match between India and Pakistan. Okay. And the final overs are having, they are going to be the deciding overs. And now my mother will have sometimes cooked some of my favorite dishes. But if that moment will be there, then I will just forget about eating anything. My whole attention will be into seeing the match, that who is going to win, what is going to happen in this final overs. So why it is so? Because what pleasure I'm deriving in that instance, that is a mental pleasure. My mind is able to derive that pleasure at that instant of time, So that is called as a mental pleasure, the pleasure which we derive in our minds, So people want to go for seeing the movies, people want to go for, seeing some, this matches and all. Why? Because those things are able to give pleasure to the mind. Same way you will find that there are sometimes many poets are there who writes many poems, and they are lost into the poems, They just forget about their eating, sleeping. They just forget about, eating and all also, because they are so much into the, poems, or they are so much into the movies. So that is called as a mental pleasure, the pleasure which is derived in our minds. Okay. And one interesting point in this regard is what? That when we have experience of mental pleasure, then what happens? We become, we can give up the sense pleasure for the sake of mental pleasure. When the mind is deriving pleasure from something, then the happiness derived from the senses becomes insignificant in front of that. Just like I gave the example, right? I'm getting pleasure from seeing the cricket match, so I can forget about eating samosas or eating kachoris my mother would have prepared. Why? Because that is a pleasure at a lower level. So see, we are discussing in the hierarchy. Okay, so the lowest is the sensual pleasure, then above is the mental pleasure. So when we get mental pleasure, then we will be able to forget about the sensual pleasure also sometimes. So this is about the mental pleasure which we have. Okay. So, right, people playing games, watching movies, entertainments, etc. Okay. And then above this thing, above the mental pleasure is called as the pleasure of the intellect. Intellect means our intelligence, right? Like sometimes, for example, like people playing chess, like here you will find that two kids are playing chess, Sometimes you'll find that two people are playing the chess. Now, what exactly is going on in their minds, nobody can make out. They only can make out that what is going in their minds. And for hours and hours, they can be seated into that position, They will be like constantly absorbed into playing, and for hours and hours they can go like that. Sometimes they may also forget about drinking something or eating something. Why? Because their intelligence is able to derive some pleasure in that. The intelligence is getting some kick, some pleasure in that, right? Same way, like there are some scientists also, many of the times, some scientists, they forget about everything when they go inside their laboratories. When they go in their laboratories and then they are into their experimentations and all, sometimes they forget about the whole world. They forget about their eating meeting also. Why? Because their intelligence is able to derive great pleasure from that. And sometimes you have this experience, like we end up solving some mathematical problem, some very complex mathematical problem. Or nowadays is the age of IT industries. So like coding also gives a lot of pleasure. Like here we have experience. I have been into many colleges for giving programs. So now there are some students who can go for coding in front of the laptops, for hours and hours. Here, like in Prayagraj, in Allahabad, we have a triple IT. So I was hearing that there sometimes students are there sitting on the laptop for programming continuously for 7 hours, 8 hours, 9 hours. How it can be so? They forget about eating. They forget about some movies and all. Why? Because what is deriving pleasure? The intelligence is deriving the pleasure. So that is called as the intellectual pleasure. Okay. So so that is the third level of pleasure which we have in our lives. That is the intellectual pleasure. And now above this is another pleasure which we call as the egoistic pleasure, the pleasure of the ego. Okay. Like here you will find there's a person who is trying to climb upon the mountain. Like you'll find there are many people who try to climb upon the Everest, and many of the times they have to lose their life also because because the climbing is not so easy. But still, people find joy to go and try out something very but because that gives satisfaction to the ego. I have achieved something. I have achieved something great. So people are ready to do for that, right? Like similarly, Indian cricket team winning, people, India versus Pakistan, the sports match are going on. So we are Indians, we are Pakistanis. The ego is involved. So because we identify with India, we identify with the Indian cricket team. That's why if India wins, then we get such kind of pleasure. We derive some kind of joy, right? And on the contrary, when India loses, then we feel some moroseness. So that is the fourth level. It is for the egoistic pleasure when the ego is deriving some pleasure. So that is also very, very high. So basically, in our ordinary life, we will find that generally we have experience of these four kinds of pleasures. Again, to come back, the sensual pleasure, then above that is the mental pleasure, then the intellectual pleasure, and the fourth one is the egoistic pleasure. So generally in our ordinary life, we do have experience of these four kinds of pleasures, and that is called as the material pleasures. They're able to give us some sense of pleasure, happiness, but that is only at the physical level. That is only at the bodily level, our material bodies. Okay. So this was about how we try to hunt for pleasure in this world. Okay. So till now we have discussed three things. We have discussed about why we are hunting for pleasure, how we are hunting for the pleasure, and who is hunting for the pleasure. Who is hunting for the pleasure? Why one is hunting for the pleasure, and how we try to hunt for the pleasure. Okay. Now we are going to see that, okay, when we try to hunt for pleasure in these particular ways, then what is our experience? What experience we do get by trying to hunt for pleasure in these particular regards? So this is being mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita about what is our experience when we will try to go for these material pleasures. They're called as the material pleasures because they are able to give us some pleasure to either of our body or to our mind or to our intelligence. None of them gives pleasure to our Atma. Okay, so that's why they're called as a material pleasure. Okay, so in the Bhagavad Gita, 18th chapter, Krishna describes about the nature of this pleasure. That what is the nature of this pleasure which we get. So he says, Vishayendriya samyogat tad agare amritotpamam pariname vishamiva tatha sukham rajas samritam. So Krishna says that happiness which is derived from the contact of the senses with their objects and which appears like nectar at the first but poison at the end is said to be the nature of the passion. So Krishna is describing in the Bhagavad Gita that how the material pleasure which we derive in this world, so they appear like nectar in the beginning, which means what, they look very attractive, they look very promising to all of us when we, in the beginning. But what happens is our ultimate experience happens, what is ultimately we tend to get miseries only when we try to go for those happiness in our life. So we'll discuss, we have listed down some 6 points about the nature of these material pleasures. We'll discuss each of them. To see, here are some of the natures. So this first thing we have mentioned here is material pleasure are like the nectar in the beginning and poison in the end. Okay. So this is the first thing, that how, like whatever material pleasures we try to derive in this world, it never comes without pain. It's like, suppose if you have a coin. So coin means you are surely going to have head as well as tail. You can't just have only head or only tail. No. As soon as you want to have a coin, head will also be there, tail also will also be there. Same way, we all can experience that how in this world, anything which promises us of some happiness, when we try to go for that, we also get accompanied with them some miseries also. You will never find that only happiness will be there. There is going to be some pain also along with that. So that is the nature of the pleasure which is there. We can take any example. Right? Suppose we want to eat something. We want to eat something very tasty, but you'll find that it may satisfy our tongue, but along with that, it also creates some health complications. If you are very much fond of eating sweets, then it leads to you to for diabetes. If you want to eat some very spicy, oily kind of things, then also leads to some other kind of problems. So like that, anything which tries to give us some happiness in this world, it also gives us some amount of miseries. You can't just avoid it. So that is the thing, first thing. So that is the nature that it is painful. Okay, that is the first thing which we discussed, that it is a painful experience. The happiness itself does not come alone. There's always some pain also associated with that. Just like, like suppose, just like when we are walking sometimes, so you'll find it when we are walking, then the shadow also accompanies us. You can't just, can't just have only shadow. That shadow is not there. That case cannot happen. Along with us, the shadow will also be there. Because that is how the God has created this world, Just like you see, like any machine is there. So now the creator knows that what is the best way the machine can be operated. And the creator knows that how this machine is going to operate. So it is being mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita by Krishna that how the nature of the world is being mentioned. Krishna says that how this world is a place of Dukhalayam and Ashashvatam. Krishna describes about the two nature of this world. He tells that this world is Ashashvatam. Ashashvatam means it is temporary world. Temporary world means what? Nothing is going to be permanent in this world. And we all have experience also in our life, right? We also remain only for a short period of time. Anything of this world, nothing has a permanent existence. Everything stays only for a short while. And because everything is temporary, that's why it is not able to give us happiness, rather it gives us pain only. So these are the two natures of the world which we are living into. It is a place where there are going to be a lot of miseries, and it is a place where everything is going to be temporary. We may try whatever means, but things are going to be always temporary in this world. So because that is how God has made this world. Just like sometimes, suppose there's a, for example, like let us say, suppose you go to purchase a washing machine. Now, the manufacturer is telling that, okay, this washing machine is going to cost you some 15,000 or 20,000 rupees. And if you will put any cloth inside this washing machine for washing, then the cloth will be shattered into the pieces. Okay. And if you will try to put your hand inside the washing machine, you are going to get a very great electric shock. Suppose if this kind of advertisement the manufacturer is going to give us, then will anyone be interested to purchase that washing machine? No, right? Because we know that the manufacturer himself is telling that this machine is going to work in this particular manner, right? So we will be aware that, okay, I don't have to get this machine because it's going to give me pain. Same way, the creator of this universe, the creator of this creation has also mentioned it how the nature of the world is always going to be, it is going to be pain giving and it is going to be temporary. So we can't change that. That's the point. But in our life, we do tend to change that. We try to think that maybe by some means we'll be able to get happiness, and we can just avoid the pains. Everyone wants to just have happiness, experience of happiness and no pains, but that does not happen. For anything we want to have, like we have students here in our colleges. Currently, I'm in Prayagraj. We have a college here, MNIT, NIT Allahabad only. I came for a program here. So now here, the students, they come, they join the college, but so here they have better perspectives. They are able to have better opportunities for placements and all, and that better academic environment is there. But to have the happiness of, being into a good college with good placements and good academic culture, they have to go through a lot of pains. Like many of them, they share their experience that after their 12th class, they go to the quota, and then there, they have to study for 16 hours, 17 hours. Sometimes they have to give up the movies, they have to give up other things. So they took that kind of pain, and then they're able to get some happiness. So it's not that one can only, it can never be the case that one can simply have happiness. There's always going to have some pain. Then only we can have some happiness. So both things comes together. That is one of the first natures of the material happiness which we have in this world. That it gives pain. The pain also accompanies with the pleasure. And the second thing mentioned here is that the limits of the karma act as a rope, and it does not allow the material pleasure beyond a certain limit. Okay, so this is also another interesting thing about material pleasure. See, as we discussed in the beginning, that how the Atma is desiring unlimited amount of happiness. The Atma has a desire to have unlimited amount of happiness. But you will find, and that's why in this world also we always desire to have unlimited amount of happiness. But what happens is we are not able to experience happiness beyond a certain limit. Our happiness is being limited. Just like, for example, like eating. Now we may want to taste many items. Suppose like in a city now I may have taste for eating, but now suppose there may be 5 nice restaurants in the city. Let us say just like a small example. Now in each of the restaurants, suppose there are some 10 dishes which are their best. So like that, how much it will become? 50, let us, or no, 100. 10 restaurants, 10 dishes each, that will become 100 dishes. Now, even if I want to enjoy those dishes together, can I enjoy? No, I have a limitation. I can only enjoy it within a particular limit only. I cannot enjoy unlimitedly. Why? Because there are some laws of karma which are limiting my pleasure, experience of pleasure in this world. Just like suppose a cow is there. Now, sometimes the cow is being tied with a rope and around a bamboo. So now, even though the cow may want to go here and there, but she cannot go. She has to limit her movements only within a particular circle. Same way, all of us, although we may desire to have unlimited enjoyment in this world, but because our body has a certain capacity and our karma, our previous actions which we have done in our previous, that also brings only a limited amount of happiness. So that happiness cannot go beyond a certain limit. That is also another nature of the world, that it is limited. We cannot have unlimited amount of happiness. And the third thing it says that how that these two questions we have to ask about material pleasures: how much pleasure we can get and how long we can get. Okay, we may try to get some happiness, but that is not long for a long time. Only for a short time we can derive pleasure from the things of this world. And also the pleasure which we get is also not unlimited. It is only very, very limited. So this was thing. So we have listed down. These are the 6 we have listed. We have made a small acronym about the nature of the material pleasure. So this is a small acronym for describing about the nature of the material pleasure. This is Paris flight. Maybe towards the end of the session, you can remember by this that this is the nature of the material happiness which we get in this world. Okay, so I will discuss briefly about each of them. Like the first thing is painful. So we already discussed that we can never have an experience of happiness without pain. Along with the happiness in this world, material happiness, we always have experience of some pain also. We can't just avoid the pain. Pain comes automatically. It comes without without our inviting also. So it is the first nature, that it is painful. Second thing is it is addicting. So the meaning of addicting is what? Addicting means what? We want to have it again and again. Our mind tends to think that, okay, maybe this thing is going to give me full happiness now. Like for example, suppose somebody is fond of gulab jamuns. So now the mind is having so much desire to have gulab jamuns. Now once the gulab jamun comes in front of us, we may take some one piece, 2 piece, 3 piece, 4 piece, 5 piece, right? And we may have some satisfaction temporarily. But it's not that for all the time to come now I'm done with gulab jamuns. No. Again, after some time we'll find again we'll want to enjoy those gulab jamuns. And same way we can discuss more about intoxications also. We find that how people do try some intoxications and all. So initially they try thinking that we will be able to enjoy them, but eventually we find that how we have to become servants of those habits, because then they start dictating us. In spite of our not desiring them, still we are being driven to fulfill those tendencies in us. So that is the nature of the material pleasure, that they are addictive by nature, which means what? We don't feel satisfied. There's no satiation, and all the more the desire goes. The desire increases more and more and more. Once you try to have them, then again the next time you are going to have a greater intensity of the desire to enjoy that pleasure. Like if somebody has not taken gulab jamun, one time if he has eaten gulab jamun, the next time then his desire to enjoy gulab jamun will be much more stronger. So that is also happens, that the intensity for getting that enjoyment also increases more and more. And it is addicting in the sense like we become slave of those things. So this was the second nature, that it is addicting. Third thing mentioned here is about R, that is risky. So the material enjoyment is also called as risky. So why it is risky? See, as we discussed in the beginning, that how, see, we are the Atmas, and the Shastras, they teaches us that how we have come in this world with a certain goal. We have come in this world to accomplish certain achievement in our life. And that is basically to again connect ourselves with our Supreme Father, Supreme God. So that is the purpose of life. So, and this purpose can be accomplished only in the human form of life. So, see, we have got these human bodies. So, like, people do value, right? We all consider that we are special. The human beings are special. So why human beings are special? We have so many species around us. We have cats, we have dogs, we have birds, we have reptiles, etc. But why the human species is very special? The Shastras tell that the human species is special because of one reason. One beautiful shloka comes in the Mahabharata. It says, Ahara nidra bhay maithunam cha samanyam etat pashubhi naranam dharmo hi tesham adhiko vishesho dharmena hina pashubhi samana. So what does it say? It says that how between us, the human beings and the animals, at 4 levels, we are same. What are those 4 levels? Eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. which means these are the 4 activities which are common between us and the animals, right? We also eat, animals also eat. We also sleep, animals also sleep, right? We also have some mating, some sex, they also have sex, and we also try to defend ourselves. We also try to defend ourselves, protect ourselves, and animals also try to protect themselves. So these are the common activities between the human beings and the animals. But then what is the speciality of a human being? Dharmo hi tesham adhiko vishesho. It says that the speciality of the human being is what? That we can inquire about the dharma. We can inquire about the goal of life. We can inquire about the higher truths of life. Who we are, what is the purpose of this life, where do we come from, where to go after death. So all these different things of our life, we can inquire about them, which is not possible in our other species of life. Like we'll find, like all of you have so nicely assembled for this talk now. Now we will never find any cat or the dog to come for such kind of classes, right? In our temples and all. We can never expect the animal. Why? Because in the other species of life, we don't have a evolved intelligence to understand about the spiritual knowledge. But only in the human life, we have an evolved intelligence by which we can try to understand about the higher truths of life. So that's why now, after getting a human form of life, if we don't try to go for this purpose, to have a higher inquiry, to have an inquiry about our God and the purpose of our life, then it's a misuse of the human form of life. So if somebody simply goes for the material enjoyment without caring for this higher inquiries in one's life, then one will be frustrated in the goal of life. Then one will not be able to have the best use of the human form of life. That's why it is called as a risky. Why? Because when we go for the material pleasure, then we forget about the spiritual life. We forget to make such kind of higher inquiries. There's a great risk that because of addiction to the material pleasures, we may forget about inquiring about our goal of life, inquiring about this higher truths. So that's why it is called as a risky. That is R. And the next thing is I. So I means illusory. So illusory means what? It does not exist. The material happiness actually does not exist. It is only illusory to us. To give an example, for example, one time when a student was there, and he was very fond of eating. So one of the times his friend called him that, come to my home. My mother has prepared a nice feast. You come and enjoy. We'll enjoy together. And that same day, what has happened is his exams also came. So now the exams have come. He came to the friend's house, and he was about to enjoy the feast. And then immediately the friend told him, "Arey, hamara result aa gaya hai. Our result has come." और बोला कि अरे तेरा you have got failed in 2 subjects. Now you see the feast was there in front of him. All the plates of nice prasad was there in front of him. But what has happened is, will he be able to enjoy? Yes or no? What all of you feel? He has all the nice dishes in front of him. Will he be able to enjoy those dishes now after hearing that he has got failed in 2 of examinations?
No.
Correct now? So the question is that, was the happiness inside the feast or was the happiness inside the mind?
In the mind.
Yes. So that is the case with the material pleasure. The material pleasure is not in the products, in the outside products, but the happiness, the material pleasure is in the mind. Actually, mind makes us feel that this is going to give me happiness. Of course, when we are in touch with some objects, when we touch some objects, then we do get some happiness, some impressions we get. But the mind translates it into, it is something very high. The mind creates a hype. Oh, I'm going to get so much enjoyment, so much these things. But actually the happiness is not there in the object. The happiness is only in the mind. That's why we find that this kind of experience we do have. That if our mood is not good, then what will happen? The best of the things will not be able to enjoy. The best of the movies, the best of the musics will not be able to enjoy. Why? Because the happiness is in the mind. So this is the nature of the material pleasure. It is illusory. That actually there is no happiness in that. That it is only there in the mind only. And the next thing it says is about S. S stands for stale. Stale means, stale means what? Even though we try to repeatedly enjoy the same pleasure, but we don't find the satiation. The desire continues. Just like sometimes you have experience, in the childhood we used to have chewing gum. So you take some chewing gum, initially a lot of nice taste is there in that, and after a certain time, then the taste is gone, and then you just simply keep it chewing without deriving any kind of taste. But you just continue like that. Same thing goes with the material pleasure also. That we try to have enjoyment from the material pleasures. We do feel that we are getting some pleasure, but it does not satisfy us. And again we try it out. Again we try out. This is called as a chewing the chewed. Just like the chewing gum, already you have got some enjoyment now. Now there's no more enjoyment in the chewing gum, but again you keep chewing it, thinking that it may give me more and more pleasure. So that's why this is called as a stale nature of the material pleasure. That how, you have, even though you try to again repeatedly chew the pleasure, but you don't get the taste. And the last thing is fly, which stands for the flickering. So flickering means temporary. That the material objects are able to give us only a temporary happiness. Even though we desire to have a permanent happiness, we want to have a oceanic, unlimited amount of happiness, but the material pleasure is capable of giving us only a flickering happiness, which means the happiness is there, but it remains only for a short while. The promise was very big. The promise was very big that I may get unlimited amount of happiness, but when we actually go for the pleasure, like when we actually go for eating a gulab jamun, or we actually go for seeing a movie, that pleasure remains only for a short while. That's the problem, and that creates further hunger unnecessarily. It does not lead to the satiation, and it leads to further hunger. So this is the simple nature of the material pleasure which we have in this world. It is painful, it is addicting, it is risky, it is illusory, it is stale, and it is flickering. So this was the nature of. So this is what is our experience of the material pleasure in this world around us. Okay, and of course, to conclude it, of course, it will also take 5-10 more minutes to conclude properly. Should we continue? I think I can just at least summarize. I can just give this conclusion maybe there. Okay. So now, so to conclude, this is what. So the conclusion is, let's see, we are hunting in the wrong place with the wrong weapons or the tools. See, we have a desire to have enjoyment. We have a desire to go for pleasure. And we are finding that how the experience of material pleasure in this world is not to our desire, not to our expectation. Why it is so? Because we are desiring for the happiness, but not in the right place. Just like suppose if somebody thinks that, okay, let me try to find out fishes in the forest. Will he be able to find out the fishes? No, because fishes can be found out inside the water bodies, inside the rivers, inside the oceans. So it is not very natural to expect the fishes inside the forest or on the trees, right? So same way, you cannot expect to have fruits inside the water. The fruits can be there on the trees. So same way, in this material world, the world where we are living, actually none of the things are capable of giving us the pleasure which we are actually looking for, because that pleasure can be derived only in connection with the God. So that's why we are finding that in spite of our best efforts, we're not able to become, we don't feel satiation, we don't find fulfillment when we go for these material pleasures. So the conclusion is that the material pleasure which we have experience of in this world, it is not capable of giving us the pleasure which we are looking for. And that's why we remain dissatisfied, even after having experience of that. So the thing is that then, okay, what is the alternative then? So the alternative is what we are looking for is, because our existence is not the body, not the mind, not the intelligence. Our existence, our real existence is the Atma, the souls. We are the Atmas, okay? And the soul will be satisfied only by the spiritual pleasure. So if we want to become fulfilled, if we want to experience fulfillment in the real sense, then we have to try out something which can give us the spiritual pleasure, because that is what is our need actually. Because ultimately, Atma is the one who is receiving the pleasure. So, and Atma is capable of receiving the spiritual pleasure. So when we will try to access spiritual pleasure in our life, then we will be able to feel complete fulfillment in our life. And how do we derive that spiritual pleasure in our life? That happens when we go for our natural tendency. Just like for a fish. For a fish to be inside water is very, very natural. Now you may take out the fish and you may try to put him inside the 5-star room. You may try to give her the best of the things, best of the eatables, best of the air-conditioned environment, best of the facilities. But the fish cannot be happy. Same is the situation with all of us, because we are the Atmas and we can derive happiness only in the spiritual things, but we are trying to have happiness in the material things, in this material world. That's why we are not able to have experience of happiness. So the Atma can experience the real happiness only when it is going to be in the true nature or fulfilling its true nature, which is basically to love and to serve the Supreme Father, the Supreme God. So as the Atmas, we have our natural function of loving and serving the Supreme Father, the Supreme God. When we will do that, then only we will be able to become happy internally. That is what I think Prabhuji mentioned in the first class to all of it, how the happiness is not in the external things. The happiness is within. So what is that happiness within? This happiness within is the happiness of the Atma, and that we can have experience of, that we can have access of when we do some spiritual practices. So like we also have some experience of spiritual practices. So as we discussed, that these are the two natures of the Atmas, to love the God and to serve the God. Okay. So now how we can love the God? So in our life, we have to love God and we have to express our love also for the God. And that can happen in our terms, like in our tradition. What do is we try to chant Hare Krishna. So just like a small child, when he wants to express his love for the mother, then he calls out the mother. So same way, the meditation which we follow is chanting of the mantra. So that is a way by which we also show our dependence upon the God. That is the way by which we also show our love for the God. So by chanting Hare Krishna, that is a way by which we can also express our love for the God, and that will give us great happiness. So I started my journey in the year 2009 when I was an engineering student, and for last almost 30 years I'm chanting Hare Krishna, and I found that it really works. We can find great fulfillment in our hearts. We can get lot of positivity in our life, and I've seen many other people also have accepted this chanting of Hare Krishna mantra. We find that they become fulfilled. They are able to detach themselves from the other worldly materialistic enjoyments, and they're able to become very much happy and satisfied internally, because that is how we are able to have access to the happiness and the real love which is there in our hearts. So this is the first way that we can love God, by chanting daily, by doing meditation daily. And the second thing is by serving the God. That we all have a natural function to serve the God. So how we can serve the God? By whatever senses we have, whatever mind, whatever abilities we have, if we try to engage them in the service of the God, and that is how we can please the God in our lives. So these are the two ways by which we can have experience of the spiritual pleasure. This is the key to the spiritual pleasure. And only when we will have experience of the spiritual pleasure, see, when the soul will become satisfied, then automatically the mind, the intelligence, everything will become satisfied. They will no more long for the other pleasures, because ultimately, as we discussed, right, if you have experience of mental pleasure, then you are no more, then you become immune to the sensual pleasure. So like that, so in this hierarchy, we discussed that there's a sense pleasure, then above that is the mental pleasure, then there's the intellectual pleasure, then the egoistic pleasure, and beyond all these things is the pleasure of the soul. So when we are able to derive pleasure of the soul, when the Atma is able to derive the pleasure, then what will happen? Then automatically we will have fulfillment of our senses, we will have fulfillment of our mind, we will have fulfillment of our ego, we will have fulfillment of our intellect. All those things will also remain satisfied. And what is the proof? We are the proofs. All of us saintly people, and many of the Vedic people also will find it. You'll find in the Vedic tradition, we always have some saintly people. Now see, you will find what is the nature of the saintly people. They don't try to go for some positions of this world. They don't try to go for some facilities of this world. But still you'll find that they're most happy, they're most positive, and they're able to give inspiration and hope to the other people. Why? Because of their connection with the God, they're able to have access to this spiritual pleasure in their lives. And because they have experience of the spiritual pleasure, they're most happy and satisfied. So that is a message which we wanted to just share with all of you today, that how in our life also, if we want to have real fulfillment of our life, then we have to long for the spiritual pleasure. And that spiritual pleasure can come by the spiritual practices. One of them is chanting of this Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, and also by trying to serve the God as per our capacity. Whatever capacity we may have, we can try to serve the God in particular regards. Like if you are earning professionals, then you can try to, like whatever abilities you may have. If you are a good speaker, then you can try to give some sessions you can conduct some sessions for the other people, teaching them about Bhagavad Gita first, learning yourself. And you can also serve God by your wealth, by your other abilities, etc. So if we will do these two things, we will try to love God and we'll try to serve the God, then we will have fulfillment of our Atmas, and then we can be truly happy in our life. And otherwise, if we will simply go for the material pleasure, then we'll have to repeatedly go through the same experience of this thing, Paris flight. Painful, addicting, risky, illusory, stale, and flickering. So we'll have to have again repeated experience of that thing. Thank you so much. I'm done with the presentation, and I think time is also we're exactly in the time.
But we'd like to invite some questions. Any comments or questions? So it'll help all of us.
I have a question.
Yes.
Like you mentioned,
Yes, Nishte, okay.
That programming, mathematics, and all gives us such some pleasures, mental pleasures, kind of thing. So, like I'm also into same profession. So, is it an illusion that we are learning, that we are continuously learning new things? We are continuously pitching ourselves to learn more things, learn things in a better way. So is it also an illusion, or we are working, or we are working hard? Because to us, we are like compromising a lot of things to work hard. We are sacrificing a lot of things to study and
Hmm.
all. So is it also an illusion, or because in my sense, I'm working hard to get it, not leaving any stone unturned to stop wasting my time and all. So is it also an illusion? Is it this because of this? Like I'm
Uh,
just really confused.
I understood your question. I understood your question. So what Nishchay is asking is that how, like we discussed, that how there are some things which gives us some mental pleasure. So now, is it okay for us to go for them? You see, what we'll find as spirituality is very practical. So in spirituality, we do learn that how we have to have balance in our life. So we have to have a balance of our, see, we have two types of duties in this world when we are living. We have some material responsibilities. Because we have come in this world, we have got this material body. So along with that, we have some material responsibilities also defined for us, right? Like many of your householders, so you have to take care of the family, children. We have to go for job. We have to earn the money. So these are called as the worldly duties or the material responsibilities which we do have. So surely we have to give time for them, okay. And at the same time, we have to learn to balance. Along with that, we have to also try to learn the spiritual duties of our life. So just like you have, it's like a two rails of a railway track. Like in a railway track, you have a two rails are there, right? Now, same in our life also, we have these two tracks. One is the track of our material responsibilities, and the other track is of our spiritual responsibilities. So yes, because we're staying in this world, we do have to go for job. We do have to spend some time for our profession, for our career, etc., etc. And there's no wrong in doing that. But at the same time, our spiritual duty should also go on, because ultimately the real satisfaction, the real happiness, the real meaningfulness is going to come from that, from the fulfillment of our spiritual responsibilities. That's why Shastras also always says that we have to learn to balance them. And for that, we need to have a proper coach. We need to have a proper guide in our life. So, if we have a proper guide in our life, then they can help us how to balance both our responsibilities, our material responsibilities, as well as our spiritual responsibilities. So, we have to learn to have a balance. It's not that like, we have to give it up fully. That is not the case. Because we are staying in this world, we have to accomplish some material responsibilities also. But see, when we don't have awareness of the spiritual goal, then that becomes all in all of our life. And that is not the right thing. So that's why, like, all of you have taken interest to learn this knowledge now. This knowledge is going to help us understand how to balance our life, and how to also devote ourselves for the spiritual goal of life, which is the main goal which we can accomplish in this particular human form of life. So it is a thing that we have to learn to strike a balance between both of the things. If there is an imbalance, then we'll be never be able to become happy. And you see, spirituality is a very practical thing. Like like Bhagavad Gita, the book which we refer to. Now, see, Bhagavad Gita is being spoken to whom? Is it spoken to some monks like us, some sannyasis like us, or some people like us? No. You'll find Bhagavad Gita is spoken to whom?
Arjuna.
Arjuna. Now, who was Arjuna?
Kshatriya.
He was a
Warrior.
Kshatriya. He was a
Warrior.
king. He was a warrior. He was a king. He was having his family. He was having his children. Okay. That's why Krishna purposefully chose Arjuna to receive this message of Bhagavad Gita, so that people can understand it how, it's not that the spiritual knowledge or the Bhagavad Gita is meant only for the people who have nothing to do in this world. It is meant for every one of us, because all of us have the responsibility to balance these two kinds of responsibilities in our life. We have to have some time for our material responsibilities, and we also have to take out some time for fulfilling our spiritual responsibilities. So what is the meaning of spiritual responsibilities? Learning this spiritual knowledge, learning about the goal of life, and trying to do some meditation, and trying to serve the God, as we discussed, to love and serve the God. So that's a balance which you have to strike for. And for that, we need expert guidance. We need to have a proper coach in our life, who can guide us. And that's why in the Vedic time, we have a concept of spiritual masters. We have a spiritual guide in our life who guides us that how we can strike a balance between these two kinds of responsibilities in our life. And if we will be able to strike that, then we'll be able to have a happy life, satisfied life in our life. Does it make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for asking this good question.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else?
Radhe Radhe ji.
Yes, Madhuri.
So सबसे बड़ी बात क्या है, आजकल हम लोग जो है ना, मोस्ट ऑफ अस गेट सो engrossed and busy in our daily activities, जो हम वर्ल्डली काम आप कह रहे हैं। तो अल्टीमेटली हम क्या सोचते हैं, जब हम रिटायर हो जाएंगे ना, तब जाके हम स्पिरिचुअलिटी के अंदर जाएंगे। दैट इज द मोस्ट कॉमन परसेप्शंस पीपल हैव, दैट ये सब काम ना थोड़ा सा एज के बाद होना चाहिए, थोड़ा सा बूढ़े हो जाएंगे तब देखेंगे। But I think all these have to be introduced and inculcated from the childhood actually. And such practices, even pranayam जैसे भी हम लोग बच्चों को सिखाएंगे, तो I think उनका mental and physical abilities will be enhanced.
Yes, yes, yes. You are very correct, very correct. तो इसलिए हम वैदिक टाइम में हम देखते हैं, in the Vedic times, right from the childhood, this training was being given to a student. But the life was divided into
Exactly.
4 phases. There was a brahmacharya period for everyone, then there was a grahastha period, like that, you know. So brahmacharya training was about inculcating in us the values and the knowledge of the shastras, so that we are very clear about what this life is meant for, how we can make the best use of this life. So that was the training in the Vedic time, right from the childhood, because spirituality is a science, you know, just like for any other courses.
And actually, according to our discussion today, you know, that is the pleasures of our pleasure leads into happiness. But जहाँ पे हम mental pleasure की बात कर रहे हैं, that is leading into a lot of addictions these days. Because you are getting into so much of pleasure for maybe playing a game, video game ही देख लो, छोटे बच्चे इतने addicted हैं उसके अंदर, because it is giving them that pleasure. So how do we come out of that? Because that is a very important concept that we need to address these days.
Okay, so you're talking about the addictions amongst the children. For the
addiction for anybody, actually, everybody gets into that mode of addiction. Why do we get addicted? Because of that mental pleasure that we are getting out of it, for anything that can be.
Correct.
Even we people also get addicted to addicted to that cricket match, you know. हम लोग जाके बैठ जाते हैं totally चिपक के उस सोफा के ऊपर जब ये मैच चल रही होती है.
Correct.
Right. So that is also, we are also addicted to certain things, whatever interest us, right?
Correct. So I can I can tell from my own experience. Suppose I will give you an example. Let us say, suppose you are hungry, okay, and now suppose you have 2 plates. You know, in one of the plates you have very simple items, you know, some simple rice, dal, sabji, chapati is there, okay, and the other plate you have your best dishes available with us, maybe chola bhatura, samosas, kachoris, gulab jamuns, right? Now suppose if somebody will offer to you that good plate of prasad, then will you even think about having that, you know, rice, dal, sabji, chapati?
That's exactly the point. My point is, you know, that we need to develop that resistance and resilience within us from childhood. We have to understand what is more important to us.
Correct. And that can happen. That's why I give this example, that because see, if we have an experience of something higher in our life, then we are able to give up the lower things, right? Like in my life also, like I can share about my journey. Like initially, before I came to this spirituality, then I also was having addictions for seeing the movies and etc., right? But after coming to spirituality, by learning this knowledge, by doing the meditation, and by having some other procedures of this bhakti, we are able to derive such a great joy that then there's no more longing for the other pleasures of life, you know, those kind of addicting pleasures of our life. So the point is that there's a need to experience a higher pleasure. That's what in Bhagavad Gita also it is being mentioned by Krishna, that how param drishtva nivartate, that if you want to give up the lower things, then you have to have a higher experience. So as you were mentioning about the children of people these days, because nowadays there's no Vedic education, there's no cultural training for the students. So but earlier times it was there. That's why they don't have access to those, you know, the higher taste, the pleasure which can be derived by the spirituality, and that's why they go for that kind of pleasure. But in our temples, we do make a point. We do try to train some small children also. We try to hold for them some seminars, some workshops, where we do try to give them some experience of spirituality. And we have experienced that many of them, they become very happy, joyful, and they are like not the ordinary children you'll find. So they learn the shlokas, and they are able to, they derive great pleasure in singing, learning, etc. So the point is that we have to have a higher experience. Only when we have a experience of something higher, then we can give up the lower things. Otherwise, it will be very artificial. We cannot do it for a long time. And spirituality gives us that higher taste.
I think even the parents need to be educated about this, that
Yeah.
how to be doing this.
Yeah,
a very
yeah. So-
important concept everywhere.
Yes, yes. The most important thing is to have Vedic education in the modern, in our curriculum and all. Then we can be happy in our life. Okay.
Very true. Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much.
Thank you, Madhu. Uh,
Anybody else has any questions to ask Prabhuji or any comment? कैसा लगा सबको आज का सेशन?
Very nice, Mataji. Very nice class. प्रभुजी ने बड़े सिस्टमेटिकली और साइंटिफिक तरीके से बताने की कोशिश की है. तो थैंक यू प्रभुजी.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Madhu.
Thank you so much.
आपके वो ग्रुप पे मैं आपके वो ग्रुप पे sorry sir, please continue.
Just want to say thank you, Prabhuji, and keep guiding us.
Actually, I am taking mentorship from Prabhuji. Prabhuji has just told me, I'm very young also to all of you. You all have very good experience of life, So I'm sorry if I have shared something, then, I was feeling very humble, to be very honest, because we are all quite aged people and all. Whatever small knowledge we have got, we have learned, we have just tried to share with all of you. So thank you so much. Maybe if you want, I can put this presentation also in that WhatsApp group. If you want to have a look afterwards, I will put it.
Sure. Thank you so much.
And if you don't agree with anything that Prabhuji says, we can candidly ask him that this we don't agree with. We find that material pleasure is so nice. I don't think it is marriage fly. We can just come across and tell Prabhuji like that. So please don't hesitate in asking any question or putting in a comment like that. है ना प्रभुजी, कह सकते हैं ना ऐसे हम?
जी माता जी, आप कह सकते हैं श्योरली. Of course थोड़ा रिफ्लेक्शन करना पड़ेगा. तो रिफ्लेक्ट जब करेंगे तो थोड़ा उसको समझ पाएंगे हम और चीजों को.
क्योंकि कई बार एक ही बार में ये बात शायद हम डाइजेस्ट नहीं कर पाए. एक टाइम, क्योंकि आप देख सकते हैं कि प्रभु जी शास्त्र से बता रहे हैं, भगवत गीता से बता रहे हैं. I mean, कुछ खुद का नहीं बता रहे हैं that he's created something and he's telling what the scriptures are telling, what Lord Krishna is saying. So it should be correct, but if we can understand it better, it will be nice, right? Okay. So Ritesh Prabhuji, could you please switch on your video? It is his birthday today. So we request Prabhuji and everyone else in the room to please bless him. And he's a very nice devotee and we are so happy to be in his association. Ritesh Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hare
Thank you, Mataji. और letting me
जन्मदिन की
join you
बहुत
Hare Krishna.
जन्मदिन की आपको बहुत शुभकामनाएं.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you so much.
Please
Wish you a very, very happy birthday.
Thank you, Mataji. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So Prabhuji, Nishchay Prabhu is very inquisitive. उनके काफी सारे questions होते हैं. निश्चय प्रभु, हाँ जी. तो प्रभु जी, अगर आपको थोड़ा समय हो तो आप पर्सनली भी गाइड कर दें निश्चय प्रभु को. Maybe he can ask you some questions on a personal level.
Sure. Happily. मेरा उसमें है वैसे, उसमें भी आपको कुछ पूछना है अभी तो भी मैं थोड़ा समय दे सकता हूँ. There's no problem. Otherwise वो मेरा I am already added in that WhatsApp group also. आप कॉल भी करके पूछ सकते हैं कभी भी.
But though I have some certain questions right now.
हाँ, please continue.
Like I would tell brief about myself. Like I'm a software engineer working in Flipkart right now in Bangalore.
Okay.
So right now I'm going through, like, 30-year-old, I would say, midlife crisis. So it's been like
you are going through. I couldn't get you. You are going through
a midlife crisis, you would say.
crisis, life crisis.
Yes, yes. So it's been like that. I'm having anxiety problems and depression problems from a long time. So so I know that all of this cannot be solved through the way that I am being living till now. So
Mhm.
I'm in pursuit of